when you were saying educators or higher ed can take the fun out of research, this is sort of putting the fun back into it. Like I I I find this is interesting. I can engage in it and I can have again a real time conversation almost instantly.
You're listening to Mentor Moments, where we talk about all things counseling, technology, education, and career development. I am Braden Wooters, and I'm joined by my co-host, Dr. Michael Keener. Grab a seat, and let's get started. How are you?
I'm good. I mean, I always look forward to my interactions with you, Braden. So I'm always ready to learn and engage, and excited for the outcome for the conversation.
So we're recording this right now on 4th of July. So, Dr. Keener, what are your 4th of July plans? What does today look like for you?
Well, I'm gonna hit. Well, okay. To answer your question, I'm sure. Well, when we're done here, I'm going home, cook some hamburgers, make some tomato mozzarella salad, a little green salad, uh, hang out on the deck with the wife and the dog. We just, with all the animals, we just don't sort of go, you know, with all the fireworks. So we usually hang home.
That makes total sense. Yeah.
But I do have something to share, right? Just our witty banter here. I had a phone call this morning, right? Who calls anymore? But I had an actual phone call from my wife calls with my BFF, Coach Denny. Coach Denny called to check in on me. So for those listeners out there, Coach Denny is our retired wrestling coach here at Maryville. He lives across the state, and he is going to his 60th high school reunion.
Have you gone to any of your high school reunions?
I did. I guess I went to my 5-year one, and well, I just got back from a trip from Buffalo, and I had breakfast with Dr. Donnelly and Dr. Franz, or Tom and Franz, or Tom and Jim, as they make me call them by their first names now, from our, I guess, last season when they were on Mentor Moment. So, but I had breakfast with them. But then I went to UB just to walk around to see what I remembered, what I didn't remember. There's only one faculty member on the fourth floor of Mulvey Hall that I remember from 25 years ago. So
now I wonder if they remember you or
well,
your.
of course they would. I didn't have this person, so they may not. But it was sort of fun walking around the university thinking like, oh, I'm an alumnus, right? So it was sort of fun. So I went to the library. I went to 2 different libraries to do some studying, some reading. I had lunch with another friend as well, my Dr. Ahuna, who's also on Mentor Moment. She was my sort of boss when I was doing my PhD program. Anyway, so that was my, I don't know, did I ever go to reunions? I guess to one. I still see people though from my high school and whatnot. So I didn't necessarily go to formal events, but I have gone back. But what about you? Do you have desires to do reunions, or?
If they've done a reunion, I haven't. I don't think they know how to get a hold of me. So I'm guessing we would have had our 5th year reunion or 5-year reunion sometime around here. I don't know. I'm really bad with dates. I haven't gone to anyone. I don't know if I will. I don't really keep track of anyone from high school really anymore, and I don't know. Maybe one day. Maybe if I'm looking to go on a nostalgia trip, I suppose, like you did. I can go back to old Shelbyville High School. And 4th of July plans, nothing really. So I'm currently dog sitting for a couple in St. Louis right now, and so I'm watching their dog. This is my first time dog sitting this dog, and so this will be my first. I have no clue how this dog is gonna.
Is this your side gig to watch dinner? Because we have a dog that you might have to come over and watch little Pippa sometime.
I was gonna say it's really becoming a niche. This is now the second family in the last year that have reached out to me And it helps when you have no big plans tripped. I think that they just kind of like let the neighborhood know that like, hey, there's this guy that has no social life. So if you need a dog sitter, reach out to him. And because they asked me, they're like, "Are you free? What about these days?" I'm like, "Yeah, probably." What about like these days? Yeah, most likely I'll be here.
So
For this season, these new episodes, we're trying to do a new segment that we try to segment these episodes into like different programmatic pieces. So fancy, it's literally just a moment of the week. So maybe a high or a low or something that's been impactful in your, maybe recent week. Maybe a story about life, anything that connects to maybe our episode that we have today. I have mine. I have an idea of what my moment is. It's on our show notes. So already knows what I'm gonna try to talk about. But yeah, my moment is new job. I recently accepted a new position. This was just recent, like over the last like week or so, 2 weeks ago. So I recently accepted a position at Lindenwood University as their student athlete therapist. So I'm just working with their student athletes there, and I'm really, really excited. I was able to kind of meet a lot of the faculty. I was able to meet a lot of the coaching staff. I was able to meet quite a lot of, the athletics staff. So yeah, I'm just really, really excited. I start, my first day is in 2 weeks, so I get a little bit of time off. But a lot of what my time has been saying goodbye to clients, which has just been such a weird experience. But yeah, that's my moment, I suppose, my big announcement.
I mean, it's exciting, right? And a new opportunity. So I'm sure there can be fun anxiety, right? Like starting a new challenge.
Yeah, that's one thing I'm kind of not looking forward to is being new again or having to relearn things. I've found a lot of comfort in my space at Youth in Need. I've been with Youth in Need since I was an intern, so I have a very nice little niche of like I know kind of. I'm not gonna say I know everything, but I know how most of the processes work nowadays. And it's gonna be a new experience after so long of knowing and now not knowing. So those are my big announcements. But I'm just looking forward to normalcy. Change is something that's not the easiest for me. So I'm looking forward to getting back into a groove, getting back into a rhythm. Um, so yeah, that's my yapping stuff.
Well, for those of you that are just listening, Brayton's got a smile on his face when he's talking about this. So this is a good thing, right? It's a good opportunity to tackle.
I'm super excited. Working with college students has always kind of been trajectory for me. Yeah, it just made sense. Whenever I decided to start, keeping my eyes peeled for maybe other positions, other opportunities, the first thing that I did was look at universities. So that was just kind of a duh thing for me. But anyway, that's my whole spiel. Let's dive into what we're talking about today. Full transparency, Dr. Keener had emailed me this document, and he asked me to give it a read. And, it's enough for me to be excited about, but not enough for me to feel like I know what we're talking about. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Dr. Peter, and kind of.
Well, so we're talking about today, right? I want the drum roll.
All right. I'll get a sound effect in there starting now.
Intellectual affluence. Doesn't that sound? Yeah, sounds important. Sounds cool. I think not that it's. I don't know. I don't want to be so arrogant to say it's brand new, but these are two terms I put together. And if we think about breaking them down, like affluence is sort of the abundance of or having quantity. I think today we talk a lot about like wealth. You're affluent, or you can afford to do things that you want to do, right? That you have this ability. Then you think about intellectual or mental or cognitive. So it's an abundance of ability to sort of be purposeful in what you're thinking about. Okay. And so that you can also cultivate that your ability to think. It's almost like making turning thinking into a hobby, right? That it's something that's enjoyable, that you want to do. But I wrote a definition, and I tried to make it concise to make it maybe easier to read. So, are we ready for the definition here?
Yes, I'm reading it right now. I got it pulled up.
Well, I changed it since I sent it to you, so I even make
Okay.
it quicker. But it's in essence it's that same thing, right? So intellectual fluent is one's ability to engage in topics that are personally significant by prioritizing intellectual pursuits, leading to self-regulation and enhanced well-being. And so again, I don't know. I guess I'll just leave it there. Do you have any initial thoughts on that? I'm going to make you a student again. So what do you think about that?
Yeah. So, like most things, unfortunately, my brain goes to now TikTok. So my brain will connect now topics to TikToks that I've seen. And I remember watching a TikTok that was talking all about research as a hobby and how school or maybe education has taken maybe the fun away out of research, and how, research can be something that you do just out of pleasure. And it was something that, made me think a lot about, well, I mean, how does that apply to me? Like, do I do research like that for things? Like, it's hard I mean, and then the other side of it, I think about, diving deep into a topic for yourself, diving deep into a topic that you're interested in. And I think about neurodivergency. I think of those with autism or those that are on the spectrum and having special interests or like hyperfixations. That's a word that's been typically used about, having that and almost like that mode of thinking or that mode of having of being able to research and dive deep into a level of thinking for one topic that you're interested in is almost easier to do for those that are maybe neurodivergent. That's the thoughts right now. Um, those are my initial thoughts.
This is why you're a co-host, because you're right on it. You're right there.
Perfect.
I love what you said again. Like when I was, so I guess I'm gonna take a step back. So maybe some of our listeners know that I have a sabbatical coming up. And so although it doesn't start in August, I'm not teaching in the summertime. So I'm sort of working on it now. And I'm working on artificial intelligence, right? And how it can support learning. And so in thinking about, like, to me, that is, or intellectual fluence is sort of the outcome if we capitalize on using generative AI to help us think better, right? Think of, again, anytime we want 24/7, we could pull up the internet and ask whatever large language model a question, right? Like, hey, I'm thinking about this. And one of the greatest things about, at least my experience with generative AI or large language models, they think most of my ideas are pretty amazing, right? And I know they're not, right? But it gives you that self-efficacy or you like, oh, I'm on to something. So it makes me want to continue to think about it, even if maybe if I'm the only one that's interested in it, this generative AI also makes me think of it. So to me, it part of it is that's where, like what you were saying, like it's this when you were saying educators or higher ed can take the fun out of research. This is sort of putting the fun back into it. Like I find this is interesting. I can engage in it, and I can have, again, a real time conversation almost instantly with somebody versus without generative AI or somebody not using AI, you sort of have to find somebody to talk to or find maybe search TikTok or YouTube or something to find somebody to talk about it or try to find, um, So that's one thing that it's sort of we have this immediate way to sort of engage in thinking, but also we can use that thinking to develop our thoughts. So we can always say things like, "Oh, I never thought about that before. How does this compare to this concept or this concept?" Right? So it helps us develop it. So we almost have again that learning coach with us, walking alongside of us. Um, so again, in my mind, if we really get into not allowing generative AI just to give us the answer, but for us to really to think with the material, think with our thoughts, we have an ability to really not only have increase the process of our thinking, but actually then have an outcome. Like I guess an outcome for me is I created this sort of term, intellectual fluent, that I have the capacity or the ability to think, right? And develop. I also sort of coined a new term with this is I find myself when I get up in the morning, I'm having my coffee and I'm not necessarily at the workspace. I'm having anticipatory thinking. Like I'm thinking about my thinking in the future, or I'm excited about, oh, I can't wait to get to work to dig into something. Right. And so that those are positive feelings. So not only can I develop my thinking, it's also in my mind, increasing my sort of emotional well-being. Like again, kind of like I just said, even if now just the process of me thinking is exciting, regardless if I get some kind of, because sometimes, right, thinking and learning is hard or it needs persistence. So sometimes maybe you don't get the outcome that you wanted, but that's still part of the journey. So it's to me, it's again, I'm finding joy in the process of thinking. And then when I had these mini breakthroughs, uh, and then these mini, well, again, even just the process and mini breakthroughs are still very enjoyable to me. So I am getting sort of this well-being out of it. Um, so anyway, I don't know. So how does that sound?
I you can't. I have my pen and my paper because I'm taking notes. You kind of hit the nail on the head. I am back into my student mode. Yeah. So researching with somebody that is actually interested in what you have to talk about. Granted, if that's like ChatGPT, but then I think back, right? So as an educator, you would think that in a perfect world, an educator's role is to be interested. And we know that it's not a perfect world, and that maybe I present you an idea about something and you might go, that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. And I'm not going to be interested in that because because it doesn't fit with maybe our curriculum and it doesn't fit with, the higher, you know, schedule that we have for the class um, or just time constraints. And so it's almost like in an ideal world that was supposed to be an educator's role was supposed to be that space of like, you're interested in learning about this. Let me be that reinforcement, that support for you in learning about this. Now, granted, you are kind of doing that already by, because I signed up for a class. Anyway, I'm going down that rabbit hole, but there are limits to that. And I think even before professors and before teachers, right? If I was doing self-study stuff, prior to the internet, I would go to a library. And while there's a librarian there, they just kind of point me to the direction. So I'm not really getting much reinforcement other than, okay, you could look there, unless they're a really good librarian to point me to other things. But even that, I'm limited by my resources. So I don't have another person to say, ooh, have you thought about this? It's just, here's the resources, and there might not be any books on what you want to talk about. Okay, so I hit a roadblock. And so then I think about the internet, and I feel like how the internet was supposed to maybe be a fix to that, when all it really is just a larger library, really. That's what Google is, right? So I put in a question or an idea, and Google won't tell me, ooh, good idea. Let's, go down this path. It's just going to say, here are written things about from people who have thought about what you're thinking about, which is fine, but even that's limited. Uh, and so I think that it gives a good idea of kind of that difference between a knowledge database and what actual like artificial intelligence is. That I'm not basing my learning off of a database, but I'm basing it off of another brain per se. Uh, what else do I have written? And then reinforcements for learning and thinking, positive versus negative reinforcements, and how the learning structure, maybe, the United States or maybe Western academic structure, how much of it is based on negative reinforcement for learning, the grade system, like how learning is now attached to performance in some way. And so, and how that shapes how an educator is supposed to operate, a- and just how difficult it is for somebody to learn for pleasure and for themselves. And so that's where my brain is at. Did I say anything? What are your thoughts on what I'm sharing?
Well, so just your last piece, I think we're on the right track. So to me, I haven't dug this deep into it yet, but in my mind, we think differently as a student versus as a graduate, or I hope so, right? Because maybe we need to teach people how to critically think. But when you were saying, again, because of the external rewards or the negative reinforcement, we need to do this to whatever, complete this assignment or to get a grade. So we sort of approach it differently than now. Okay, now that's more intrinsic. There is no, we're just doing it because I want to do it. So when you I agree, there's something different when we want to read to learn versus read for fun, or how, and I know we've talked about this before on different episodes, that we both sort of mentioned when we're doing things now in the office, we often have a large language model up at the same time, like we normally have Google up, right? We're the internet up. Well, I notice now when I read, I'm reading whatever article that I'm reading, but I'm also have, again, like as we said, I have the large language model open and I'm asking it questions, right? So it's no longer now linear where I'm just reading what the author wanted me to read in particular order. I'm taking that, oh, I never thought about this. And how does this connect to this? How does this connect to this? In one way, I think maybe I'm increasing my attention deficit disorder because it takes me a lot longer to read something now. But oh, what about this? What about this? What about this? But I'm also, on the flip side, expanding my curiosity and making bigger connections. So again, when you were, and that's where I kind of got back to today or early, we always mentioned already. This morning, I was sort of using a large language model. Well, what are the similarities and differences between a habit and a hobby? Because I'm thinking, because there's other critical thinkers that talk about habits of mind, like, so how do we create these habits? And to me, that's what intellectual fluence could be, a habit. We are, like, I am in a habit of trying to develop my thinking. But when I first was reading about it, it was very like, well, like brushing your teeth is a habit. It's something you do, but you don't necessarily not emotional attachment to it. But then when you read about a hobby, that's more intrinsic, more free flowing, that it become your hobby can become a habit. But so to me, that's why it's maybe the best of the both worlds, because I do want this to become somewhat automatic. Now, when I approach a new topic, I might be, oh, tell me more about that, or that's interesting, or I'm curious. But then I also have that youthful excitement for a hobby. Like I want to learn more, or again, get into flow state, or we do experience other positive emotions, again, look forward to having, you know, quote unquote, a real conversation with my wife or you or whoever. Okay, this is what I learned. So,
And I also think about, mm, like, over time, how ChatGPT has kind of learned what I find important and what is not important to me has been nice. I think that I think we're on what, ChatGPT 4.5. Um, it's starting to remember kind of how I value the feedback that I'm getting. And so that's been super helpful for me, is that as am going down this track of learning, whether that's maybe because it's not studying anymore. I mean, that's the other thing where um, a lot of my desires to learn now are client based. So it's recognizing gaps in my knowledge. And then when I recognize that gap in my knowledge, my I don't know, then I will then pursue to fill that gap. And then having it both be for work, it's been tough. How do I describe this? I don't think I'm describing this well enough. And so I guess that's a bigger question because I mean, really, a lot of what we're talking about is quality, right? So the quality of our thoughts, the quality of our learning, and that feels like such a difficult thing um to measure. And I don't even know like what our closest piece to measurement is, other than like self med, like maybe after an hour, then I self, measure that. That's where my brain goes. Is like I immediately want to go to like the research brain of like, okay, implementing more, you know, uh, assisted learning that is using generative AI, like how does that actually measure up to maybe without it? And how do we measure quality of thoughts? That's such a difficult, okay, what are we holding? So
The book, I don't know, would be gonna be The Battle for Your Brain.
just erase that.
I'm in the, I don't know, middle, maybe the first quarter, first half of the book. Um, it discusses neurotechnology. So similar to what we would wear with a Fitbit or a smartwatch where it can sense things, this technology um, can sense brain activity. And so it talks about both the potential. So in already some employment areas, think of high-speed train conductors or air traffic controllers or bus over the truck drivers or over the bus drivers, where it can sense fatigue. And I guess I'm not sure how it somebody's collecting that data and then it gets back to the individual. So I don't know if it gives you a little jolt or some kind of, I don't think it's a jolt. But companies that have used this, right, for over the road trucking have seen a reduction in fatigue related accidents, et cetera, et cetera. The sort of the thesis is here is again that the battle for the brain is then who has control of your data, right? And then can other people use it sort of against us? Can you get fired if you're not seen as being productive or you're not being attentive? Can a teacher give you a poorer grade if they can sense that, hey, they're inattentive? Yeah, they like, hey, I could lie about committing a crime, but now they have the brain waves, so it's better, so like what are your thoughts even protected anymore? So again, I'm only get a little bit into it, but it's just interesting again, kind of just what you were saying. How do we monitor? Because I am interested through this work with this AI. I am interested in through cognitive load theory and other things. What's an optimal work session? And I never even thought about sort of having something attached to my brain to sort of see when I'm focused or not focused. It was more of just knowing after a while we get tired, right? And we need to sort of take that break. We need to take a walk, listen to music, and then we could kind of get re-energized. But like as I originally thought it from students when they're studying, right? Like how can they prime their thinking, have this great session, then cool down their thinking um, to be as efficient versus just reading, or rewriting notes or doing so.
Yeah, and these are themes that we've talked about previously, but flow state and being connected to like time and time orientation, that's a huge thing that we all notice is that when you're in a flow state, when you are probably at a place where you're most likely having quality cognition, quality thought processes, time goes by really fast. The sessions that I have with clients where I'm on my game and I don't feel exhausted. I feel energized. I have that curiosity, that wonder. and then I look at the clock and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's already been a whole hour. And then just to even take it a step further, but to see how my flow state can impact my client's flow state. Because typically, whenever I'm able to reach flow state and time goes by really fast, whenever I look at that clock, I'm looking at the clock at the same time that like we're both shocked that it's been an hour. And so you've got me even thinking about like how it's a I don't know. It's like a force, like once I'm in that flow state, then it's easier for the person next to me and to enter it.
And I know we'll talk about this at the end, but when we talk about awe, there's a way to experience awe when there's a collective effervescence. So like when you go to a concert and everybody's sort of in sync, but there also can do it, but just two people. So in some ways, I don't know if you experience awe, but in that way, there is this connection between people that helps with that, or it can be, when you're again a mutual flow state or a mutual healing of this.
Well, and you have me thinking about like anticipatory thinking of like that is what a lot like to have that not just anticipatory thinking in yourself, but when the person next to you uh is thinking the exact same thing as you, or when the person next to you like finishes your sentence as you're having a thought, like that connection that you have, and the fact that it's really hard to recreate that with a artificial intelligence, but we're getting so much closer to it, to that feeling of like, you're on the same track that I am. And then that's what I think for me inspires a lot of curiosity. That's whenever I feel more like amped about what we're doing. So yeah, I don't know. I think about that measurement. And then the last thing that I was thinking about whenever you're talking about, having like electrodes like attached to your brain and like being able to monitor those things, I think about, you know, clients. Like, how can I tell if my therapist was listening to me or not, other than a whole lot of mm-hms and a whole lot of, reflection and active listening skills? Like, could they, pull up the data and be like, okay, my therapist was not on for that time.
And that's what the I forget what country it was, but like students that you're like red, green, or yellow on your attention span. So a teacher could sense that. So yes, then I would say a client could check into our engagement level. But
That's so scary.
it's also, I think that we have control of our thinking, meaning obviously there are days we have good days or bad days that it just makes us more in tune. So I think if we start, we're more aware of our mental state as well. So more on this well-being side that, oh, I can recognize, hey, I'm a little cranky, or I'm feeling a little short, or I need to work on, or hey, I need to. So I get, to me again, it's just another proactive thing that not only can it help us like cognitively, I think it can help us and our emotional thinking as well. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm going through, the remainder of the notes that you had sent me, and we already kind of chatted about the enhanced thinking, the brain being a muscle, that the more quality workout that you have with your brain, that it gets more juice essentially. That engagement in meaningful activities. I don't know. I'd love to know a little bit more about that. I think because my brain's going to different places. Like, what do you mean whenever you kind of touch on like meaning, like engagement in meaningful activities?
well, um I guess full disclosure, I thought of this affluence from the term time affluent. That one way to, um, we all feel like this pressure that we don't have enough time. So somebody with time affluence, they have time to spend it in activities that they want to pursue. So that's where that making. So if I want to spend time thinking or thinking about cognitive load theory or awe, that's meaningful to me. So that's where that perspective was, that we purposely seek out things to think about things that are meaningful to us, whether that's career development, family, um, other hobbies, woodworking, whatever those things are, that's that meaning. Like whatever we hold meaningful, we have that we want to, again, think deeper about it.
Well, and you make me almost, because I think about this topic and I think about this process and I wonder, like, first of all, it sounds very deep yet very simple at the exact same time, which makes me wonder, like, how often am I already doing it, or is it this very rare thing that the world is we're getting less of? And then the last thought that I have is algorithmic things. So, thinking deeper, going down a rabbit hole, and how algorithms of, the biggest one that I can think of is YouTube is, okay, hey, you had this thought. How can we provide curiosity, or, the next guess of, like, a little bit deeper in the recommended videos on the side? And how can we access, like, a pseudo intellectual affinity? Um, I don't know. Would you apply that to this? Would you say that that's what they're practicing, um, or would you say that that's different? I guess.
I don't know if I know enough about this besides if we think we like it, they're going to show us more of us to sort of get us to watch more of us so they can sell us more things. So in some way, no, it is. Some way it's similar. Like that, if there is a positive feedback loop, right? Like if you like the videos that they're showing you, you are going to stay longer. I'm I am liking however it's making me feel when I have this opportunity to think deeply about these things and use this new tool. And so there is that, again, maybe this is the positive reinforcement. Like it's my Pavlov thinking bell is being rung. And so I want to, again, do more of it. Maybe it's social learning theory a little bit, but I'm getting some kind of self-efficacy because people are asking me about stuff, or I have good colleagues and friends that are interested when I do share stuff that, again, I'm getting some kind of positive feedback. I think to answer your first question is, I think that this might be under if we have not the pyramid, the iceberg, right? That this is the stuff that's under the water. So it's there. We're just making it more visible. And again, maybe we talk about it maybe we do a whole nother episode on awe. But what I discovered from reading about awe is I might experience awe a lot, but I didn't know it was awe. It was just, hey, that is pretty, like,
Yeah.
fireworks are amazing, or how does, look at the wonder of nature, or seeing a child learn something for the first time is sort of is awe inspiring. But now that I'm aware of it, again, I just read less than a month ago, I got this book, but so like I am now seeing awe like experiences, whether it truly fits the definition, but it is bringing joy, or, again, it's a positive emotion. Um, so, so again, I think, again, so this is sort of, and I get one of the reasons why I love to talk to you about this is I'm trying to flesh out these ideas, right?
Yeah.
So this is, in my egocentric way, the first time I'm putting it out into the world. So we can say we said it first, but now trying to define it, maybe like, look, okay, how do we create it? How do we measure it? I've already started thinking about, hey, what questions could we ask that sort of help us think about, do we have control over our thought, or how do we developing our complex ideas? Are we finding enjoyment out of this? So then that maybe we can go back to what you said before, measure somebody's intellectual affluence.
So I am trying to get my keyboard to work here, and I am looking up the definition for, where is it? Yeah, so I was looking up the definition of novelty. Definitions being something new or unusual. And so it has me thinking about, the novelty of life, and that's something that I've read a little bit about. And seen a couple of videos about I'm about to get really introspective here, about how as you get older, life seems to be getting quicker. Life seems to go by faster, and the theory is that as you have more life experience, the less novel experiences you have, the less newness that things have, and so the human beings see a lot of life as new experiences and things that kind of slow down time. That we have these milestones that make you kind of slow down a little bit. Okay, this is my first day of school. This is the birth of my first child. The death of my first parent. Big things that are firsts in our lives, and then as you get older, maybe those firsts get less and less. And then when you apply that to learning, right? How do we make it novel? How do we make, okay, you've learned this a bajillion times, or how do we make this feel new and exciting? And it slows down that time for you. What are your thoughts on those things, I guess? Yeah.
Well, again, I know there's other psychological principles that when we are 10 years old, 8 years is a long time, but when you're 60, 8 is nothing, right? So when you talk about life is speeding, so there are those things as well. So that was interesting. But when you were talking about novelty, to me, you're also, again, you should pick up this book on awe, because the definition of awe, well, there's lots, well, something that is bigger than ourselves. That's really like we see this, um, it's standing at the edge of the Grand Canyon, right? That this is awe-inspiring, that it's transcendent, it's bigger. So in you trying to search for novelty, what's new again could be those moments, right? The first time you experience death, or first of this, or getting married, right? The second part of awe, besides this grandeur, this bigger than life, is it makes you, they use the Piaget term of accommodation, which is it's changing how we think about something, right? And one of my intellectual affluent moments when I was reading this, I was thinking about existential crisis. And then they, again, using the large language model, I said, well, that's an excellent example of how you come across a death moment, right? Or a birth that makes us stop and think, and then we're going to think differently because of it. So, um, again, I like that novelty aspect to,
And most novel experiences that you have and awe experiences that you have, I think, do take you out of yourself. I think of like big milestones for me, and they weren't like, oh, I discovered this. It was usually in conjunction to something outside of me. I met my first friend, something that's outside of my own brain. And that as you get older, you kind of learn more, or you learn less about yourself. You think that you know yourself the older you get. So it's harder to have those, you know, newness to yourself, I think.
one of the outcomes of awe is they talk about you having a smaller sense of self. And I think you just alluded to that. Like, you see the world as this big place, so you have a less of an egocentric focus and a more of an outward worldly focus, or taking on
Yeah.
world.
And I'm so glad you're bringing this up, because I would love this. We'll get into this in another episode, but I want to put a pin in it. Is like that is a good thing, and how I would love to read the book, because I'm sure that the book is probably showing it as a good thing, because being a therapist, and we talked a lot about self esteem, and just learning more about how that is how that is different than low self esteem per se.
Well, and one of the things that is sort of a deterrent of trying to find awe is when you are in depression, because you have more of an internal focus. And so it is sort of, I think you could, there's so much, I mean, so much, there's a lot of people talking about mindfulness now. And again, I think that would be kind of a parallel, that how do we search for awe, everyday awe? Because sometimes we think awe has to be this grand thing, but again, just walking down the street and seeing a millipede walk, and just thinking about, oh, how all their legs work together. I mean, that could be something awe. I was driving home the one day, and I was going through the neighborhood, and I saw two young kids sitting on a bench outside like just interacting. I mean, to me, that was like that the world was still their oyster, like there's still this newness there. And then I had a friend who has 2 young kids, and whether she knew it or not, she said she made a comment like on whatever social media that it was wonderful watching her 2 daughters explore nature, and they were just playing like in creeks and just running back and forth and like again novelty that's new like that is. And so again, I think searching for it again, another outcome of awe, and I could see it with novelty, is you have a greater sense of wonder and curiosity. So there is this learning aspect of it.
That's such a good reframe. I guess to tie like a sort of bow on it is like I know that I was just talking about my new job and I was like sharing a little bit of fear around it. And what a good like reframe to be like, well, no, it's novelty. It's new. You get to be excited about a brand new thing. This is a good like way to kind of, shake yourself out of thinking that I don't know. It's just such a more positive reframe of those things. So are you ready to transition to Counselor Corner? Well, we can keep this one short. Okay,
Yeah.
I have mine. Do you have anything on your end first?
Well, I guess the only thing I've been thinking a bit lately, again, AI. Um, I did I guess a little over a month ago, I did a conference at the Missouri Rehab Association. I was just talking about my use of AI really to stimulate my thinking. And a counselor came up to me afterwards and was pretty excited about thinking about using AI to help with writing case notes, right? And of course, everybody's aware of, okay, protecting, what information are you putting in, protecting it? Are you going to disclose it? Um, and I wasn't sure from talking to the person if they were wanting AI to transcribe, like listen to the session and transcribe it and then write it, or was it again, you're talking with AI, if you will, talking and then helping create case notes this way. And other full disclosure, I'm writing an ethics course this year or this summer, and I created an agent where I put in the ACA, the CRC, the NBCC, and music therapy and marriage and family. So I think there's 5 different codes of ethics in this agent. And so I had a conversation about it. Like, okay, if you were going to use AI to record, what things would you need? And again, it was disclosure, sign, where is the data being protected? And it was sort of telling me all the things that we needed to do to make it okay. And then I decided to ask a different question. And I said, on a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being you wouldn't recommend it, to 10, go ahead and do it. How would you recommend, or what rank would you give it, right? It said 4. So again, less the half of letting AI. And again, it was some of those things again, like, can you really guarantee confidentiality with technology? Does your clients really understand, what that means? And I was thinking that another way for me to feel more comfortable with that is it would have to be another company that's already used to providing like lockdown protected services, right? Like whether it's case management services or telecounseling services, okay? That versus me just using X technology, right? That wasn't already that didn't have a platform built around it. So little did I know, like last week, I get an email from the ACA, get the last email, and it's one of the case management systems that ACA, it came from them. So again, in my mind, they're almost endorsing this, but it said this new feature, and well, again, it's allowing AI into your session. And I'm not sure where you're getting me being somebody that loves AI. I don't know what I do because I also equate this to police officers wearing a camera, right? It does protect somebody, but it also doesn't, it could potentially doesn't protect the client. So I don't know, again, with subpoenas or whatnot, if I would use it or if anybody, if a client wanted to put some kind of claim on it, right? And if case notes are technically the clients as well, could the client sort of take this recording and then sort of hold you responsible for it? So I don't know. To me, I guess there's potential, but also some concern.
I wrote a short little piece on it for my newsletter, and I am very grateful for saying I don't know the things. I've been saying I don't know a lot over the last couple of weeks, given my transition and transitioning out of my role. Lots of I don't knows of I don't know who's going to be doing that once I leave. I don't know who's going to sit down supervision for my staff. I don't know. I want to be. The good news is that, and I write about this, is that my I don't knows are followed by action, and typically, and are followed by me, pursuing these things. But I'm trying to be a little more reflective on my feelings about knowing what I don't know, not knowing what I don't know, and being okay with that, and pursuing leaders, pursuing supervisors that are okay with not knowing, and being okay to sit in that kind of gray space. So that's my kind of counselor's corner, is that if you're a therapist, say, I don't know. You're allowed to say, I don't know. And if you're curious why, put a link, a little shameless plug to my newsletter. Okay, quick resource review. Any shout outs, any book, podcast, or tool that you feel like has been super helpful to you recently?
Yeah, we sort of talked about it all the way. So again, Awe, Daxler Keltner, the person studying this. So you'll see lots of articles published there as well. It's it's, I don't know, over 200 pages, but easy read. Well, good to think about it. You can, again, also find some good articles if you want something quicker. So check it out.
Mine is another A word. It's another A word book. Kind of goes into a little bit into what we're talking about, not too much. It's called Abundance by Ezra Klein, and Derek Thompson. It talks about an abundant frame of thought, of a growth mindset, and an abundant reframing, and then it goes into like legislation and policy that fits with that, and to have more, and to operate from a sense of abundance and not from a sense of scarcity. So how do we close this? How do we wrap this up? I mean, we've kind of already had like a bunch of takeaways, but I think we should definitely have another episode coming up about awe. For
If I had a take home moment, is two things. Think about something that interests you, right? And just, even if it's just spend an extra 2 or 3 minutes, but like, think about what excites you and what do you want to learn more about, and then look for those everyday moments of inspiration or awe or novelty.
Yeah, and if I were to provide anything, to the generation that was on TikTok or social media, I operate from a sense of, I'll see something cool, I'll like it, and then I'll move on with the idea that, okay, I'll come back to that because that's so interesting. I want to make sure I come back to that because I have more thoughts about that, but there's probably more things that I could look at. So I'll like it with the idea that I'll come back to it. Come back to the things that you like. If you're liking it, that means that you're liking something on social media. Maybe it's YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. You're liking that thing, or you're engaging with it for a reason. Explore what that reason is. Go back onto your recent things that you're looking at and go from there and explore. Oh, I like that recipe because I was thinking about cooking something similar. Slow down and actually do that instead of moving on to the next thing, which is definitely what, they want you to do. Like it, say that you're going to come back to it, but then take in more content. Slow down. There's a reason why you're ingesting that content and that you're engaging with it. So dedicate some time to go back to those things because you are engaging with it for a reason. So,
Amen to that, brother.
woo! Thank you for listening to Mentor Moments. If you liked what you heard, give us a follow. And join us again in 2 weeks for another conversation about counseling, education, tech, and career development.